Welcome to the Taking Ground podcast with me, Aaron Brockett, where I and some of our team will be diving into conversations with the purpose of providing clear biblical truth, equipping you to contend for the faith in this cultural climate that we find ourselves in. We're test driving this content, so if it is helpful to you, rate, review, and or share these episodes, as that will help us determine if we should keep going. Here at Traders Point, we want to clear the way, equip for battle, and deploy for impact to take ground for the kingdom across Indy and beyond. So let's dive in. Your first time to Indiana. I did not know that.
To Indiana.
That's amazing.
And I couldn't have picked a better place and better people.
Oh,
wow. First time in Indiana.
Well, yeah. What do you think of Indiana? Like,
I love it.
You?
At the beginning of my sermon, I just preached at 4 p.m. I said, I've only been a short amount of time. Not only is this a sermon, but a working interview.
That's right.
I was like, literally.
Dude, I would hire you in a heartbeat.
Talk to Pastor Aaron. I might have crossed over.
I will be your assistant or your teaching pastor. Just one of those.
I love Indiana. Love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Incredible. Thanks for being with us, man. Julian Lowe, part of our message series. We've been friends since 2021, I think.
Yeah, I think it was 2021. It might have been in 2020, but yeah, I think it was 2021.
How'd you guys meet? Like, where did you meet?
We met at Carrie Newhoff's house, of all places.
Really?
Just to drop that.
Canada's in Barrie, Ontario. Something crazy. Like,
so this was like the first time. I don't know. First time I'd traveled outside the country since COVID.
Yes.
So we had to like get tested to go in, tested to go out.
Wow.
And
it was intense.
It was kind of an intense thing. And Julian got invited to our cohort through our mutual friend, Sean Morgan. And that was the first time we met.
Yep. I was on a golf course when I got the invite, which is normally, I'm on a golf course when I get most of my invites, especially if it's in the morning. So,
and what I love about Julian is, as we've kind of gotten to know each other and talked about our stories, I don't know that there's much outside of Jesus Christ that we have in like similar. When I say like
so good.
That, when I say like where we grew up, the kind of family we grew up in, the kind of church stream we were in, and yet when I started talking to you, I was like, dude, I love this guy, and yet there's so many things that like, I mean, you did improv for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, your fashion is insane.
Yeah, super smooth.
And yet there's like such, I have at least me to you, I have such an affinity for you, and I'm so grateful for you.
I feel exactly the same. This is like a bromance. Like,
it's
because I feel exactly the same.
Hey,
we could go back and forth.
I'm glad I get to witness it. This is
so
awesome.
So Julian, for the like people that are watching, so this podcast it's I would say a good portion of our own people. This is kind of like cutting room floor stuff.
Yeah.
This is the conversation after the fact. This is when we talk about like air game, ground game, discipleship.
Yeah.
This is like more like ground game. You know, the preaching and the worship. Oftentimes, like a lot of people, they only hear from me from the platform, and I want just a little bit more longer form conversation, and then to help model our people how to have helpful dialogue, small group conversation.
That's awesome.
That's really kind of like
I love it.
What this is about. So and then we have, I think, probably people outside of our church sphere that are kind of watching this. But for those who may not be familiar with you, just give us a little bit of a snapshot of who you are and where you're from. And
yeah,
so
church. I'm from Los Angeles, Oasis Church in LA. We are in real LA. 10 minutes from downtown. We're not 30 minutes in the suburbs. When people say they're from LA, they have to explain it that way because they might be in some suburb town. But
San Bernardino.
Exactly. And San Bernardino's not LA, although that's where I was born and raised. It's about an hour outside of LA. But our church is on one of the busiest street corners in LA, Wilshire and Normandy. By the grace of God, we got a big cathedral out there.
It's gorgeous. I was there in November, I think.
That's right. It's amazing. God is good. And so the church is in the heart of the city. Been there 42 years. I'm married, got a couple of kids. You know, I got into ministry just like a crazy story. So I was like really like in the world, man, all in my 20s. And we were doing music. So part of that successful music career, one point of it was being funded by a guy that was selling drugs to fund it, and I didn't know that he was.
Wow.
And
See, this is what I'm talking about.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't have
That's not
stories
your
like
life.
this.
Yes. So I didn't know that he was. This is like, and then I knew later that he was. And then because it was helping the music move forward, I kind of just didn't care. And this is when I first like, I'm going to give Christ everything I had. But I was already in all these spaces and still trying to thought, I'm just making music. So big deal. Where are you getting the money's none of my business. So, a couple years later, 2007, 2008, My friend who is selling the drugs calls me and says, hey, my buddy's the guy who I've been getting the drugs from, turn on your TV. And I turn on the TV and all the news cameras it's interrupted the regular scheduled programming. And this guy who I've met is throwing out money on the 8 freeway in San Diego with federal agents following him.
Oh my God.
And I've been to this guy's house and I know who he is. He's throwing out money on the freeway. So my friend goes to his lawyer's office and gets arrested. And he comes to Oasis because he's facing 10 years in jail.
Oh my goodness.
And when he came to Oasis, all the music stuff fell apart. And he said, I've been going to this church, Oasis, and you need to come. It's changing my life. And I went.
Wow.
And so at my transition service, this guy who was the drug dealer is at my transition service when I was taking over the church, and he is bawling his eyeballs out, thinking about how him almost facing 10 years in federal prison opened up the door for me to be the pastor of a church. Like, that's how I came to the church. It's pretty
That's
wild.
Incredible. So that was you visited the church.
Visited the church.
Not a believer.
I was a believer, but I was an undiscipled believer. So this happens a lot in LA where we believe in Jesus, but no one takes the next step to like surrender their entire life to him. So I believed God existed, but I hadn't surrendered my entire life. 2007 was the first year I surrendered my entire life to Jesus.
That lordship.
Yes. He was my savior, but he wasn't my Lord. So 2007, he became my Lord. And then he just went crazy. There's this, that from there to 2009, that 12 years was pretty wild.
Yeah.
2009 to 2007, to 2019 when I took over the church.
That's when you took over.
That 12 years was pretty wild.
So you came on staff of that church?
I came on staff in 2013 as a kids director.
Yeah.
So like I was like a kids pastor. Like I always tell people, I don't know, I'm a great kids pastor, bro. Like,
undoubtedly.
Like I'm like,
Dude,
I have my own puppets, bro. like Bishop T.D. Milkshakes was a puppet. Reverend Billy Graham Cracker.
Let's go.
And I would minister to 3-year-olds with the puppet, but like real ministry.
Yeah.
Like one time there's a line, I was giving people encouraging words for them and their family with the puppet, and the 3 or 4-year-olds are standing in line so that the puppet could lay hands on them and praying for them. So I was doing real. That's how my pastor met me. He's like, who's this guy with the 3-year-olds, man? There's a revival back there. They would worship. They get on their knees and worship God. And that's how I met him. He wanted to know, who this guy everybody was calling the kids whisper. And then he just took me under his wing. And, from there, it just kind of like progressed.
That's phenomenal.
Wait, do you still have the puppets?
I don't still have the puppets. I wish I would have kept them. They were such a collector's item. But like, man, it was going
amazing,
down back
man.
there.
Moved on.
So I'm a kids pastor at heart.
And so then you, what was the transition like? Was it like a long transition?
No.
It was pretty quick.
Yeah. So in my mind, he at the end of the day, he got cancer in 2014, 1 year after I came on staff, and his recovery time was pretty long from that cancer. So he beat cancer maybe 18 months later, year to 18 months later, but then his immune system was down for the most of the time. So he never recovered in his immune system from all of that. And so we were bringing in different leaders to try to help. And I was just with the kids and the youth, and I was just trying to help him. So I really didn't know that I was going to be the next pastor until I think he told me 9 months before I took over the church.
Wow.
And he's like, man, because he got cancer at like around 60. And then he turned it over at 65. But all of 60 to 65 was him trying to recover in his health. And the board was like, hey, we need you to help. So in 2018, I got voted the interim lead pastor so he could go on a medical sabbatical. 2018, and they chose between like 4 people. And I got chosen. And the church kind of blew up.
Wow.
Yeah.
In 6 or 7 months, like blew up.
Wow.
And then when he came back from that trip, I believe that was a time where he was like, hey, I feel like I need to step down and you need to take it. And now at that time I was like, what?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot.
Like it was not like, yes. Like,
Yeah.
And I think that's part of like what made me, I was telling a young man, he was 16, and he said, man, I feel called to be a pastor.
Just after the service
After
tonight?
service today. He said, I feel called to be a pastor. Like, do you have any advice for me? And I was like, yeah, find someone to serve and get under their authority.
That's good. That's really good.
That's my secret weapon. You're not called to ministry, you're called to people. You're called to a leader. I'm like, I did not break that. I was called to my pastor. I would have died in the church. So He could say anything to me. He could do anything to me. He could, not lead me into sin, but you know what I mean? Like
Sure.
there was no, I wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
I was called to him.
That's part of what I love about your stories, because you've kind of walked that parts of that story with me and some of the other guys we know. And I love how the fact that you weren't like clamoring for that role.
Right.
It's not like you were sitting in the wings going, it's just a matter of time before he sees that I got what it takes to do this.
Yeah.
You were just like kind of oblivious, like
No clue.
no clue that it was coming your way. And there's something I think really refreshing about that, especially in the culture in which we live, where it's like, I've got these plans and desires and I'm kind of pining for it. And I think God's honored that and blessed you.
And I did have a prophetic clue. Like I felt like, is this, but I didn't have an internal desire. I didn't allow that to become a personal.
You weren't posturing for it.
No.
What were your prayers like in that season when he approached you?
That's
like
great.
you talk about the prophetic side. It's like, what was the conversation with the Lord like? And yeah, just let us in on some of that.
Man, same one today, bro. Die to self.
Yeah, that's good, man.
Like, even when I came here, man, like I'm not here as a guest speaker. I'm under Pastor Aaron. Like, if anything makes me effective, if people are encouraged by the message at all, is the mentality is I'm here under Pastor Aaron. I want to know what God's doing in the church. I want to know how long the church has been around. What are you trying to do? What are you
That's good.
leverage? Like for this 48 hours I'm in town, I work for Pastor Aaron. I'm not here on my own thing. So the number one prayer is always was to die to self, because anything that God wants you to do, most likely without God, you wouldn't do it on your own. This is not, you and God don't agree. Someone tell me all the time, like, hey, how do I know if I'm hearing from God? I'm like, if you automatically agree, question it. Like, question
That's
it.
good, dude.
Like, if you automatically go, yes,
Yeah,
question it.
that's good.
So yeah, in that thing in 2018, when in my Bible was like successful music guy, two of the biggest pop stars in the world were going to our church in 2018 when I was an interim lead pastor. Biggest pop stars in the world, and one of them performed at the Super Bowl shortly after that, and I texted him and said, "Hey, I'm super proud of you," and then I put it on my Instagram. I'm super proud of so-and-so. They did a great job. And the Holy Spirit was like, I felt God say, I'm taking that relationship from you.
Wow.
And I'm like, why? Well, you told him you were proud of you. Then why did you posted on Instagram? Because you needed everybody to know that you knew him. And I do not, that celebrity thing in LA, I'm dealing with severely. And I lost the relationship.
Wow.
Like, it was like, so there were certain things that like God showed me that he put the biggest pop stars in my life and didn't allow me to write music with them. So my prayers are still the same, man. Like, Lord, show me your will. And usually when I find out his will, there's something that I need to die to self to be able to achieve it.
That's really good, man. Wow.
Man, I appreciate you sharing that. And that's one of those lessons that you don't check the box on. It just keeps coming back up.
Yeah. It keeps coming back up.
I got to continue to die to self. I got to continue to lay that stuff down.
It's always something, man.
Yeah.
It's always something. It's like, it's little things sometimes. It's big things. Recently I was telling our church, I would go in places and I would count black people. How many black people are in here? Like, if I'll be invited to a pastor's thing and the Holy Spirit's like, stop doing that. These are your brothers. Don't do that. Don't do it ever again. And so I stopped. And I feel like it's allowed our church to see, what real unity looks like and what real people. And I love what you were saying, like, we come from different walks of life, but like my walk of life doesn't determine who I love and who I partner with. Like, we both believe in the same God. That makes us brothers.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, I was at a conference and this family brought me a 2-year-old. They're like, we were hoping someone here has a gifting with children. I'm like, you came to the right guy. It's like, she's having some issues and we want you to pray for her. And she was like clinging her mom. And I looked at this little girl, she's 2 years old. I said, because your daddy believes in Jesus and your mommy believes in Jesus, that means your dad's my brother and your mom's my sister. And I need you to come to Uncle Julian so I could pray for you. And it was like something happened.
Wow,
She
man.
leaned down on her
Wow.
mom's arms. I held her and I prayed for her.
Wow.
Like, that's the spirit I try to carry, bro. Because
That's
there's too many things that divide us. There's too many ways we could see that we think different, we believe different. And the enemy's always trying to make people hate each other. So
Yeah.
there's just little things like that. I keep checking in with God, and I'm not perfect, but
Yeah.
that's kind of like my main prayer, bro.
That's really good.
One of the things I just love about you is that you've got that like prophetic thing in you in the best sense of the term. And you have like both feet on the ground, and you know how to like lean into culture really well, maybe better than most pastors that I know. And you do it with like humor and like a little, and like definite, like,
Yeah. That's my background though. Yeah.
yeah. So you can use that like really,
Yeah.
really well, but it's almost like it's like a pop, pop, pop. Like you can soften us up with some humor, but then you're like laying some stuff down. I mean, I've gotten text messages from you where I'm like, I think honestly, the reason why I called this series is because of you.
Sheesh.
I mean, because when I hear about, because I think you've even said that to me a time or two. Hey man, I got a word for you.
Yeah.
Like you'd pull me aside and you're like, hey man, I got a word for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't really come out of a tradition where we talk like that
Yeah.
much. And so I really deeply appreciate it. And it made sense to me, and it made me stop. Like it kind of quickened my spirit a bit. You've done that several times to me. And so out of the 4 speakers in this series, you were the first one I reached out to. I don't know if you remember this text exchange.
I do. Yeah.
I was like, I should pull it up on my phone, but I texted you and I was like, hey, Julian, like you want to come preach for me this October? And I think you said, dude, I literally just got done watching your service.
Yes.
And you were like, I was thinking, man, it feels like a move out there. I'd love to come see it.
Yes. And he texted me, I want to say it was less than 24 hours. It was
That's
like
amazing.
watching his sermon. I'm like, man, this is like, I just felt it. And then I got a text within 24 hours,
Yeah.
which is why, you know, even in the sermon today at the 4 p.m., I got emotional because
You did.
I love what God is doing here, and just I don't ever want to take that for granted. You know what I mean? Like to just be and speak into movements that are 200 years old, or like blood and sweat and tears are put into it. So, yeah.
Speaking of which, your message tonight was brilliant. I got to watch, because I'm heading out of town tomorrow, but I took it all in. I'll probably watch all 3 times tomorrow as well when I'm on my drive. It was brilliant, dude. And I didn't read ahead. I didn't know what you were doing. I just wanted to go into it cold and just kind of see where you were kind of taking us. And the fact that you did like a whole overview of John the Baptist. I mean, there for a while, I was like, where's he going with this?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's part of the brilliance of it. And it was like the hammer got dropped.
Yeah.
Like when you were able to show us how John the Baptist has got this, there's this prophetic word over John the Baptist. There's this, when he and Jesus are in the womb, like he leaps, he knows this is Jesus. He declares it to the crowds. But then whenever he's in prison about to be beheaded, he's got doubts.
Yeah.
Dude, it was brilliant. And it caught me off guard. Like I was like, holy cow, if John the Baptist was that confident, and there's that kind of thing in me even where I can be, I can have a prophetic edge to me when I'm preaching. And then as soon as I'm done, the people pleasing pastor comes out of me.
Yep. Yep.
I'm like Elijah in 2 Kings 19, where I'm like talking trash with the false gods of Baal and having a great time doing it. Maybe your gods are relieving themselves. Ha ha ha. And watch God move in power, because I'm not trying to be mean. I'm trying to be clear. And then as soon as it happens, then the spirit of Jezebel comes after me on Sunday afternoons. And I just want to crawl up in a cave and, die. And so I think that I can really relate to that, where John the Baptist is so sure and so clear to prophesy who Jesus is. And then when his own life falls apart, doubts seep in.
Yeah.
Is that a message? How long have you been kind of marinating on that message? Is that a message you brought to your people? Is that something that's
that was a message that I get about 3 messages a year that I feel like are for the Big C Church.
Yeah.
And so that was one that I brought, and I was like, oh, this is not just for me. This is for the church, because this is where people waver when they're going through something. And so really the sermon is just about elevating John the Baptist theologically, and then presenting them in his humanness, so that we can relate. Because oftentimes it's like, when I saw that, I'm like, this is crazy. And it was exactly how I'm feeling right now. And that's part of like relating to culture, which I think you do really well. I think one of the things is like, there's a narrative out there that is kind of like, in order to be prophetic, we all have to be Elijah. We all have to confront with no fear, confront boldness. But I get that. Yeah. But you got to be careful, because I believe like what I'm seeing here is more Daniel. So Daniel was a student of Babylon for 3 years. He refused to pray, but the way he engaged with three kings.
Yeah.
3 separate kings, and he was the number one source of wisdom and counsel for 3 separate wicked kings. So then the internet tells us we all have to be Elijah or we're not afraid. Yeah. But I personally think, Trader's Point, there's a Daniel movement where it'll be governors, mayors, professional athletes, people that just like almost like a beacon of light, if that makes sense. And there's certain things that's like, hey, we should be Elijah, but like Daniel would be called, weak. In this, you're letting them change your name. You're letting them take away all the temples. He would be a weak pastor in today's world. But we need both Daniels and Elijahs. And I think that Daniel spoke to culture. Elijah spoke to Israel.
Oh, wow.
So if you look at the difference, it's like we probably should be stronger with each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Tone.
Yes. Yeah. We should be stronger with each other than culture.
Yeah.
Like we should be able to go, hey man.
Yeah.
Like that ain't right, bro. Like you gotta let's go. Let's and that's what I've loved about our cohort. It's like we strengthen each other. We like, what are you saying? What are you doing? One of the times that I watch Pastor Aaron the most is when something's going on in the world. Like I'll just catch his sermons to catch up. When something's going on in the world, I feel like there's no one better. Because I was telling somebody that today, it's like there's this way of Daniel where he understands what the culture is. Because it's like Daniel was trained, but he's speaking the truth and speaking in revelation. So I think that's what I think culture needs Daniels and the church needs Elijahs. We need to rebuke each other much stronger. We need to say, hey, bro, that's not right, man. You know better. But the culture, I think we need a different tone.
Wow. What a word.
That's really good.
At least that's what I'm doing. I don't know if he's going to work.
No, yeah.
I mean, Trader's Point around 200 years. So until Oasis around 200 years, like who knows?
But man,
listen to that or not.
You said
pray
what,
about
42 years?
Yeah, 42
Oasis,
years.
that's amazing. So talk about that for a second. So like talk about, in LA, it's much different than here in Indiana. What are some of the things, you talk about being a Daniel versus Elijah. So like talk about the culture in LA, like how's it going, navigating through the flashpoints of what we're in right now.
Are all the stereotypes about LA real?
Yes.
Yeah.
Except all the stereotypes are LA are real. A lot of stereotypes are real. We call
comes from some truth.
Yeah, we call stereotypes racist, but at the end of the day, man, like a lot of them are like, it's kind of real. The only thing that's not real is that LA is like a godless region. There's been multiple revivals in LA. Yeah. Like multiple. I mean, some of the biggest revivals America's ever seen have been within a driving distance of Los Angeles. So that would be the only thing. But yeah, people are like, it's a little bit harder to get the word into people's hearts. People are like, they're not monotheistic. Like they like Jesus, a little bit of crystal here, a little bit of like burn some sage.
Yeah, you talked about that
vibes
tonight
and energy.
Bit,
So but yeah, so I would say to some degree.
Do you think we're in revival right now?
Where? Here you are
across the country
in America.
In America.
Yes and no. I think it depends on like your region. So I think that a lot of people doing something is not revival. A lot of people doing something that just a few moments ago they would have never done is revival. So it's like, has the church gotten better? Like between last year, to have 750 baptisms at Trader's Point compared to 2000, what did you guys do? Like you had your same baptism meetings that you always do,
Sure,
right?
Yeah.
Like you didn't go, no, this year, this is where. So that's a revival. It's something that was like felt like it was dying or stagnant, like coming to life. So I would say that we're not in revival yet because revivals always affect the region. So our church is not experiencing revival; we're experiencing awakening. That's what I would call that.
Good. Yeah,
where
that's
people in this room
Yeah.
are coming to the Lord in massive numbers. Like if I can get them in this room, this is happening. Trader's Point probably went through their awakening some years ago, and now revivals always affect the region. You've never had a revival that was in a room. It affected the whole region. So when you guys went from 1,500 and you're doing all this, and again, it's not about the numbers, because you could have a lot of people in the room doing nothing, but I think the impact on the region. So we are in a personal revival for sure, and a personal awakening, and we're kind of believing that it's going to affect our region. It's starting to move that way.
Yeah. Yeah, your church is, I mean, it's like right downtown LA.
It is.
You know, whenever I got to go out and visit, I was like blown away as I pulled up, and I was like, man, this is amazing that there's this like work of God happening right downtown LA.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I know
one of the busiest street corners in LA, top 3.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that, you know, we met shortly after or right on the tail ends of COVID. So you were kind of like, you stepped into leadership in your church, and then COVID happened.
4 months later, yeah.
You got to rebuild after all that in LA.
Yeah.
Which was just wild. What types of things have you seen God do in Oasis in the last 4 or 5 years coming out of that? How are you a better church going through that than before?
That's a great question. I think I'm better. I think I was scared when I took over the church because
I can relate to that.
There were things that like my pastor did. My pastors built an incredible movement, but I think I went into it more not wanting to mess up what they had built. And it was dangerous for me to have vision. It was dangerous for me to think that way. So that doesn't just happen when you get the church on 4 months before COVID. I'm just thinking, don't mess this up. So I wasn't really walking in who I really was. You know, like we didn't like really push at that time. And I'm not saying that like my pastors weren't bold, they were bold, but at that time they came from a church where you kind of stayed away from the political things. You know, you talked about purity, but you didn't really specifically say like sexual. So I'm like, if I went there, which I had a heart to do that, then I'm going to empty out the church and no one's going to come. And then Pastor Phillips is going to have to come back and take the church. What was a blessing was that COVID emptied out the church.
That's right.
And then if they didn't, it wasn't my fault. Like somebody with a cough emptied out the church. I was off the hook.
Yeah.
And it allowed me to be, you know, free. And it allowed me to use my, you know, God-given creativity to say things in a different way. So one of the things I think that God's done is God has really given our community a hunger for the truth. And he's given me a wisdom to tell the truth.
Yes.
That's good.
So like I told our church, this was last week. Hey, I get emails. The number one email I get for people who are thinking about coming to the church and they want to know what we believe is they want us to believe. They want to know what we believe about sexuality. And I said, from here on out, how I'm going to answer that email is I believe the same thing that you do. We both believe the same thing. And you see the whole church. I said, we both believe that all devoted, committed relationships require the restraint of sexuality. We both believe that. The difference is that I believe that God controls what we restrain about our sexuality. You believe you should. So for example, you go through your boyfriend's phone to make sure you're the only or your girlfriend's phone to make sure you're the only person they're sinning with. And the whole church just started dying laughing like, oh shoot. So really you want to be their God. So when they cheat on you in a sexual way, you're upset. And you know what God would say to you? I know how that feels. They're not faithful to me either. And then the whole church is like, oh.
Yeah.
So it's these different ways that like we're able to address the thing. So like if we talk about life begins in the womb, like I don't say Roe v. Wade was a move of God. We're in a liberal town. I say things like I've never met a child I wish wasn't here. And then people go, yeah. So there's different ways that we've opened. So I think that's the number one thing is the hunger for truth. And I feel like I've said some things that I'm expecting people to walk out on. And they don't. And I'm just like super grateful at that because
amazing.
I've been pushing it even more recently in my own way because I deeply love people and want to see people come into the truth of God. So, I would say the second thing that maybe I will add on that list is like God has really used us to encourage other local churches. So there's kind of like a lot more unity than there used to be, you know, where pastors are showing up to the others, you know, each other's stuff and checking on each other. We currently sponsor 2 full-time staff members for some local churches that are smaller than we are.
Yeah.
And so we pay their salary for like 1 year. Hey, hire this person. This will help you build your church. We'll sponsor the salary for a year. You do the same. We'll give you a year to make it work, believing that you guys are going to build. So stuff like that. LA Unity's been pretty awesome.
Yeah, I love seeing that. I think I saw that after the fires.
Yeah.
There
It
was
was
a church.
Hillsong LA,
Hillsong,
actually. Yeah.
Okay.
Did they lose their building
For that weekend they did.
that weekend? So you guys kind of merged up together,
Exactly.
which was really cool to
Yeah.
see. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I really appreciate about you is you're very bold, but you're not mean and like down your face about
I'm not
it.
angry.
You're not angry.
Yeah.
But you say hard things, and you're not afraid to say hard things. But you do so with like some humor, some disarming.
Yeah.
I don't think that people are maybe fully expecting you to maybe say what you might say. I've seen you do that in multiple ways, like either in person or through preaching or through your Instagram, and trying to navigate this cultural moment. I think that's where kind of all of us are at. I mean, we're a part of several different pastors' text change. Like, how do we navigate this?
And it's one right after the other. We
Yes.
just went through one. That was like gnarly. So,
Yeah. And I really appreciated your wisdom on even that one.
Yeah.
I watched, I think, an Insta Live with you and like 3 other pastors who I don't know any of those guys. I think
Yeah.
it just popped up because I knew you, and just really appreciated your wisdom and insight on that. Because I think that, like you said, it's almost like these like, we talk about like the pains of childbirth in the sense of like Jesus returning. I'm going to talk about it in like a little bit of a different sense, where it's like these like cultural flashpoints that are, you know, we saw COVID, we saw George Floyd, we see election, we see Charlie Kirk, we see all these like types of things. And it feels like it used to kind of be like, wow, we had that one, we navigated through it. Oh, whew, hopefully we won't have to deal with that in another 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, it's probably going to be like 5 or 6 weeks or 5 or 6 months.
Maybe longer. This one I think will be even longer.
Yeah. So where it's just like they're coming really quickly. And I think that the answer isn't angry pastors. The answer isn't passive pastors. The answer, I think, is like culturally engaged pastors. And I love your analogy of like Daniel and Elisha.
Yeah, that's really
and
good.
being able to be like wise, because I do think that that's a little bit of a different for some people. And in the sense that maybe they're not necessarily used to pastors maybe speaking into things, like you even said, like they were kind of surprised I would even go there or say that. So what kind of, we have some pastors who listen to this. The vast majority of people are not pastors listening to this. I think they're just faithful Christians who want to avoid confusion.
Yes.
And the melees of all the voices. And I think the biggest discipler in the world right now is algorithms.
That's so true.
And so how do we decipher through confusion to understand because these cultural issues it's not that there isn't biblical truth around them. It's very complicated. And most of the time I'm faced with yeah, buts. You try to say something clear and it's like, oh yeah, but, or what about?
Yeah.
Or you're failing to see this. What kind of words of counsel would you have for us as we navigate all the confusion and all the flashpoints?
I think if you are listening to this and you're not a pastor, I would say it's very dangerous when we say we want our pastors to speak on social issues, a lot of it is we want our pastors to affirm what we already think about that issue.
That's really good.
So we're not asking them to speak up.
That's good.
We're asking them. So just ask yourself, hey, I have something. I hope my pastor says something that corrects me this weekend. If that's your heart, then great. But I said this thing in service, like, man, when I didn't speak up, people are like, why aren't you saying anything? And then when I say something, they're like, I can't believe you said that. And then I'll say what I think they want me to say, and it's like, they're still mad. I'm like, well, I said what you thought you wanted me to say. So really, it's like most of wanting your spiritual leader to speak up is you want them to say what you already think. And I think that's a super dangerous thing. So, you know, the more recent one is a lot of people in LA wanted people to come up and say, you know, something about Charlie Kirk, and they had a certain thing, and then then people got mad. For me, I'm saying something. You know, because I felt that like that was one of the most horrific things that I've ever experienced in my life. And in that moment, you know, you have to let me lead you, you know. And I think that like, for me, like, I remember this feeling, you know, when George Floyd died, you know, he had a criminal record, all of that. But I remember hating when people brought that up because I'm looking at him and I've experienced things with police before. And I just wanted all my white pastor friends, conservative or not, to jump in with me because I'm like, that could have been me.
Yeah.
And now we had the most prominent young white conservative in the world get shot on national television, right? And all of my conservative pastor friends, and I'm conservative, I mean conservative white pastor friends, are like, that could have been me. I'm boldly speaking the truth. And then the black community started bringing up the things that he said that they didn't like, but we didn't want people to do that when it was George Floyd. I'm saying that's the hypocrisy of it. Like that, now's not the time to bring up what you didn't agree with. We have to stand with this person and with this human being, no matter what. And so I think that I will say this: if you're a pastor, and the very first time you're going to bring something up is Charlie Kirk, you don't start with Goliath, bro. What did David say? Like lions, tigers, bears. Don't start with Goliath. Like if you're not bringing up social issues on a regular basis when Goliath hits, now's not the time to find your voice.
That's really good.
You know, David practiced, and he said, "I'm prepared for Goliath." So there are certain cultural issues that are Goliaths. I like to speak to even the small ones so that I feel like I'm prepared and people understand my heart. So yeah, if you're not a pastor, then you got to be looking for correction. You can't be looking for your pastor to validate what you already think. And if you're a pastor, you got to make sure that you're consistently speaking to these issues and that you understand what both people in the room may be feeling. And there can nobody that you don't care what they think. Right. But it's like, I care what you think, but I'm still going to tell you what I believe the scriptures,
Yeah,
you know,
that's,
say.
that's so good.
That's
man.
really good.
You know, because I think even with this last go round, there was a lot of commotion around. Did you say his name? Did you not say his name?
Yeah.
And I would actually be a little bit more. More my concern was this is a pretty significant moment, regardless of how people felt about him or the politics of it all.
Sure.
And there were certain pastors. I was on part of a text chain, not one with you, but there was a group of other pastors, and literally it was Sunday night after that all happened, and they said, "Hey guys, was your attendance up today? Super weird."
Ours was.
Well, I know, but ours was too. But this pastor was like so checked out that he wasn't expecting people to show up hurting that day.
That's crazy.
Like it was like, that's kind of weird that all these people would show up. And I was like, at this point, it doesn't even really matter to me, say his name, not say his name. Dude, your head was so far in the sand, you didn't know that people were going to show up hurting in some way. So to me, it's more like, how do we shepherd and pastor people through these really volatile moments? Which is really challenging. And just like you said, I mean, say something, I can't believe you said it. I got lots of this, shame on you, or I'm so disappointed in you.
That you said something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I didn't say enough. It was both.
Yeah.
And so then you're like trying to it was our friend Ed Newton said, I refuse to be your jukebox.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot to that where it's like, I call it, even like if people know I'm going to preach on sexuality or whatever and it's coming up, I'll get like a preemptive email.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I really hope you don't say this. And it's kind of like, wow, that's really interesting. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying that I'm always right, or I'm not open to admonition or even like godly counsel and correction. But like preemptive strikes to where it's like, really, I think what's happening is people develop a worldview, whether they realize it or not. They want their pastor to affirm their worldview. And if they don't, they get like, that spins them out. That especially maybe if they, you know, Pastor Julian, I love Julian. He's spoken so much truth into my life, but on this one issue, we disagree. And then I don't know what to do with that. Yeah. Instead, I think that's a really good word to say, you know, are you coming to church to just agree with everything or to come to say, man, I need to be open to what it is that God might say that might run against the grain of what I've been seeing.
My personal story was, you know, I repented after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, because I felt like I had certain issues with things. And I think a lot of things were spun away that he wasn't really trying to say. And I also think that you gather social media clips by being, you know, by editing in that way. So that's how you get the clicks. So I do think his social media team, because some of that stuff was posted on his own website. But I'm like, wait a minute, man. Like when I was throughout human history, there's so many of the most wicked people did not die at the hands of another person. I mean, Hitler killed himself. Or like, when you look back on history and see who was assassinated, they were always trying to bring a great change. So I can't remember the last time someone got shot. So I'm like, oh, if the devil wants him dead, then I was wrong. Because that's literally like, I looked at that wrong. So I took the time because I've never seen anything like that in the entire time I've been on this earth.
Yeah.
I have not lived through that. Like the last one would have been Martin Luther King. And the way that we went, history has gone through the words that Martin Luther King said, because we didn't like him when he was alive. He had a 25% approval rating. And now everyone loves him. And I do think that would be what I did. I started actually doing research on myself. I started looking for the context of what was said, and so much context was missing. The thing about the black pilots, the whole context was, I don't care if they're all black. I don't care if they're all white. I don't care if they're all Hispanic. I just want to stop making decisions solely on race and go. That's what was said. So as I went and did my own, homework, I personally repented and said, man, he was a martyr. I really do believe that. Demons don't kill demons.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Demons don't kill other demons. So when I went through my own process of repenting, it was able to speak that. So if you're watching this, I went through my own process as well, not coming into it thinking I'm right. And, now I have a whole different perspective than I would have before.
Wow.
So,
man, appreciate that.
It's really good. Well, I mean, not to stay on that too long, but would love to hear your takeaways from the memorial, what you're seeing in the world, like just because, that's such a dramatic moment in our history, but like just the optimism you're seeing in the Big C Church. Like, again, we talked about a little bit of revival. Like, it feels like we're kind of teetering on revival. I would love to hear two things from you, man. What are you optimistic about in the Big C Church? What cautions do you have for the Big C Church?
What a great question. Do you write these questions down? Do
He
you
just
pray?
thinks of
Do you
it.
fast
Look
before
at-
you ask these questions? The questions are so good. Like
He's a lot smarter than
Are you on a
people
30?
think.
Are you on a 30-day fast? Do you go on a 30-day fast before you come with these questions? It's amazing.
He doesn't just
Thank
have an
you.
angelic
Thank you.
voice.
And
He
no
has-
wonder,
oh my
I want you to
Lord.
read me a Bible story. Like, it's so good. It's so good, man.
Thank you.
Now I made a joke. Now I asked the question. What am I seeing?
Yeah, like what are you optimistic about?
What are your
and then what
cautions?
cautions for the Big C Church?
I am very optimistic about the way that the church appears to be rising up in times like this, and young people are coming to the church in droves. There's a narrative that the church is dying and the church is alive and well. You are seeing Jesus being, proclaimed. You're seeing Jesus being talked about. You're seeing Jesus being exalted. They're making shows about Jesus. They're making movies about Jesus. They're making Christian content. Christian rappers and artists are blowing up left and right. So we are seeing, it's almost like God is softening the palate of America right now with it. So I'm super encouraged by that. Pastors who would ordinarily never meet each other are doing life together and speaking into each other's life. So that would be the thing that I think I'm the most encouraged by. The concern would be that the Bible talks about in the outpouring of the Holy Spirit, go to Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, the ends of the earth. And I do think that there's a Jerusalem revival where everybody has grown up in the same walk of life, believes the same thing, and they're all worshiping God. And let me just be very honest, because that's what podcasts are for.
Yeah, for sure.
Jerusalem, what we saw even at Charlie Kirk's funeral was what I would call a Jerusalem revival, where people are coming together. And obviously everybody there likely would have been a conservative. But we have to remind ourselves that Charlie Kirk was martyred because he was going into Judea and Samaria. And he had a gift for going into spaces. And I believe, this is just my personal opinion, that from the text messages that liberals were coming out and defending him. Hey, Charlie Kirk was not this racist. I got this text message the night before. He was softening his heart even more to reach people that were far from God on both sides of the aisle. And that's why he died. So we have to make sure, I believe that was the moment where the devil's like, we got to get rid of this guy. So Charlie wasn't just in a Jerusalem revival. He was reaching out to like, I believe Van Johnson posted something and multiple like prominent liberal voices posted something. So my concern would be that the Jerusalem revival doesn't go to Judea, doesn't go to Samaria, doesn't go to the ends of the earth, and we miss the very thing that we were honoring about him was that he went to places that nobody went.
That's good.
And that cost him his life.
That's really good.
And what I will always honor him for, no matter, I don't care what anybody thinks about it, is that he went to places knowing those death threats were imminent, those death threats were prominent, but the Lord had showed him something. He had shown him something of what America could look like. And my concern is simply this, that I believe that whether you agree with him or not, that he had a vision from God. And whether you agree about the way he was going about it, he had a vision from God about what America was supposed to look like. And my concern is that we are mobilized and inspired by the irritation of what we see America looks like now. And that's not the point. We're not moved by what we see. We're moved by what we don't see, like prophetic vision. So I think that we're going to have to go into places that Charlie Kirk went. And here's what's weird about that. Martyrs always release revivals. And on both sides of the aisle, tell me something bad about Erica Kirk.
Yeah.
And like, if you're watching this, like, and I was watching the funeral, I was like, dang, like a racist man could not have produced a wife like this. It's not possible.
The fruit of that. Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah. That's good.
Could not happen. She forgave him on national television. That could not happen. If he's at home bashing people, if he's at home hating everybody, if he has hate in his heart, how did he produce that? So that's what I would say. That's my warning.
That's really good.
We got to see that revival and go, is this a Jerusalem revival, which means we're all on the same page? Or is this a Judea, which is we're kind of on the same page? And Samaritans, like, bro, I hated you 2 years ago. And now we're family. That is what's happening in America. And that is what Charlie Kirk was trying to do. And that's why the devil killed him. He killed him because he crossed over in Samaria. 5 years ago, it was Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Wow.
He crossed over,
good,
bro.
Man.
And the devil's like, we can't have that.
Wow.
Dude. Man, it's always good to be with you, man.
Always good, man.
Thank your
Good to be in
wife
Indiana.
and your kids for letting us borrow you for the weekend.
Course.
I can't wait to hear all the messages tomorrow. This will air by the time that all happens. But it's always good to be with you, man.
Beautiful.
Love you like a brother.
Love you too, man.
Yeah. Thanks for being
Thanks,
here.
bro.
And thank you for all your great questions, man.
Yeah, you're welcome, man.
That's what we pay him for.
Gosh,
Good.
man.
That's it.
Worth every penny, bro.
Thanks, man. See you tomorrow.